Have you ever wondered why your heart absolutely pounds out of your chest right before you give a class presentation?
Oh yeah, the classic public speaking terror.
Right. Or, why you suddenly panic feeling this cold sweat drop down your back when you get a vague, urgent text message on your
It's
phone.
just a total physical takeover.
Exactly. It feels almost like an overreaction.
No.
You know logically that you aren't actually in danger, yet your body completely takes over.
I mean, you're standing in a perfectly safe, climate-controlled classroom surrounded by your peers, but your nervous system is treating the situation like a mortal threat.
It's wild.
It really is. It is a massive disconnect between the reality of your environment and the reaction of your biology.
So, to figure out why a text message gives you a literal panic attack, we are blending some incredible source materials today for this deep dive.
I've got a really fantastic stack of research.
We do. We're pulling from foundational evolutionary psychology manuals, including an open source educational project called NOBA and the Diener Education Fund. And that features work by researchers like David M. Buss.
Some really foundational stuff.
Yeah, and we are cross-referencing all of that historical psychology with fresh data and current events from college campuses right out of the spring of 2026.
It is a phenomenal stack of research because it forces us to look at millions of years of human history alongside the immediate, hyper-modern stressors that university students are facing today.
And the mission of this deep dive is to show you how your modern 2026 lifestyle is secretly being driven by ancient Stone Age survival software.
That's a great way to put it.
You might think you're just navigating an academic semester or trying to manage your social life, but your brain is running code written thousands of years ago. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the engine behind all of this, which is evolution and adaptation. Most of you know the basics of Charles Darwin from high school biology, right? The 1830s voyages, observing the Galapagos finches, the basic idea of species changing. But in this context, how does that biological engine actually translate to human behavior?
Well, the translation happens when we look at the ultimate currency of evolution, which isn't just surviving for a long time.
Wait, it's not.
No, the currency is reproductive success. Evolution is the gradual process of biological and behavioral change over generations, driven entirely by the necessity to adapt to complex challenges in a local ecosystem.
So it's about passing things on.
Precisely. Organisms have to successfully pass their genetic material to their offspring to influence the future of their species. Any trait, whether it's a physical feature or a behavioral tendency, that fails to assist in that reproductive goal inevitably disappears as generations progress.
The sources actually gave this visceral historical case study that really illustrates how immediate and brutal this process can be.
The volcano example.
Yeah, the volcano. Imagine a prehistoric landscape around 10,000 BCE. Suddenly, a massive volcanic eruption completely and permanently alters the food supply. We are talking about a global cooling event, a harsh winter that just doesn't end.
It's a complete environmental reset. And in that devastated environment, individuals possessing even slight variations in physical traits, maybe a slightly slower metabolism or a better ability to retain core body heat, might suddenly find themselves uniquely equipped to survive on scarce resources.
Just out of pure luck of genetics.
Exactly. Before the eruption, those traits might not have mattered much, but the environment changed. Those subtle biological advantages suddenly dictate who survives the harsh winter to reproduce and who perishes. Darwin actually summed this up perfectly. He said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, but the most adaptable."
I want to pause on that because I think the phrase survival of the fittest creates a very specific and often wrong image for people.
Oh, absolutely.
You hear fittest and you immediately picture physical dominance, like a bodybuilder or the biggest, most aggressive animal. But survival of the fittest isn't really about physical strength at all, is it?
Not necessarily, no.
It makes me think of a smartphone continually updating its operating system. If the digital environment changes, say, a massive new cellular network rolls out the phone, doesn't need a thicker titanium case or a shatterproof screen to survive.
Right, the hardware isn't the issue.
It needs a software update to remain functional. The fittest phone is simply the one that integrates seamlessly with the new network.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Fitness is entirely about the alignment between the organism and its current environment. It is about adaptability. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see this exact same evolutionary pressure happening right now, just in a different form.
You mean on college campuses?
Yes. In the spring of 2026, academic journals began reporting massive lifestyle and behavioral changes on university campuses due to hyper-advanced artificial intelligence integration.
Right. AI isn't just a tool anymore, it is the new environment.
Precisely. It is acting as a modern evolutionary pressure cooker. The academic environment no longer exclusively rewards the student who can rote memorize facts, because AI can do that instantly.
So memory isn't the survival trait anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, first and second-year college students, along with older non-traditional adult learners, are being forced to rapidly alter their daily cognitive habits. They have to shift toward rapid synthesis, critical analysis of AI outputs, and complex problem solving just to survive academically in this new technicultural ecosystem.
Wow.
Yeah, and those who can't adapt their cognitive software are quickly being left behind.
So the environment forces us to adapt or die, or I guess in the 2026 college scenario, adapt or drop out.
Right, exactly.
But that brings up the physical reality of these changes. If the environment demands adaptation, how do these survival mechanisms actually manifest in the human body and brain?
Well, evolutionary biology categorizes all evolved solutions into two major distinct classes: physiological adaptations and psychological adaptations.
Okay, so body and mind.
Yes, physiological adaptations are these structural hardware changes within the body itself. You can think of the development of highly efficient sweat glands to regulate body temperature during a hunt, or specialized immune responses designed to combat deadly local pathogens.
That's the physical hardware update.
And then you have the software updates, the psychological adaptations.
Absolutely.
These are specialized mechanisms of the mind that evolved to solve very specific ancestral problems.
Like what kind of problems?
We were talking about cognitive modules.
Uh,
Localized emotional responses, like the capacity for intense fear, the sting of romantic jealousy, or even our deep-seated cravings for nutrient-dense, sugary, or fatty foods.
no, that explains a lot.
Yeah, and the crucial thing to understand is that these two classes don't operate independently. They work cooperatively. The evolutionary psychologist Leda Cosmides described this beautifully, noting that the mind and body are dual weapons forged in the fires of survival.
Dual weapons. I love that. Let's put those dual weapons into action because the text gives us a scenario that connects the Pleistocene epoch to today.
The foraging scenario.
Yes. An ancient ancestor's foraging in the wild, and suddenly they encounter a saber-toothed predator. Instantly, the biological hardware kicks in, sweat glands activate to cool the body down in preparation for extreme physical exertion.
Ready to sprint.
Right, and simultaneously, the software kicks in. An intense psychological wave of terror triggers the immediate flight response.
The psychological terror is the mechanism that forces the physical body to run. They operate in tandem to ensure the organism escapes a highly hazardous condition.
Here's where it gets really interesting. That ancient biological reality is exactly what is happening to you today during that stressful class presentation.
It really is the exact same thing.
When you are standing at the front of a room in 2026, your heart racing, your palms sweating, your mind racing with anxiety that is literally the exact same dual weapon response as our ancestor facing the saber-tooth. There is no tiger in the classroom, but your brain perceives the social threat of public failure as a literal survival threat. It's ancient software running in a modern setting.
And we are seeing modern responses to these modern tigers everywhere. Recent 2026 public health trends highlight urban university students facing intense new environmental stressors. We aren't running from predators, but we are dealing with chronic noise pollution, extreme screen fatigue, and constant digital surveillance.
Which our brains treat like a constant predator threat.
Exactly. A recent national wellness study revealed that to deal with these unprecedented levels of burnout, students of all ages are instinctively pairing physiological exercise regimes with psychological mindfulness apps.
Wait, they are hacking the dual weapons?
Yeah.
They use the physical exercise to burn off the physiological stress response and the mindfulness apps to calm down the psychological alarm bells?
They are actively managing both physical and cognitive coping strategies to survive the pressures of the modern semester.
Survival of the individual organism makes perfect sense. You want to stay alive to pass on your traits, but this creates a massive paradox. If the ultimate goal is individual survival and reproduction, why do humans ever sacrifice themselves for others? I mean, why do people jump into freezing rivers to save someone else?
It seems counterintuitive.
Totally counterintuitive. To answer that, the research says we have to zoom all the way in past the individual down to the microscopic level of DNA.
Yes. This brings us to a concept called gene selection theory. This framework totally flips our perspective. It argues that genes, not individual organisms, are the primary units of selection.
The genes themselves.
Right. Evolutionary traits evolve based entirely on their ability to increase the replication success of the genes themselves. Richard Dawkins had a very famous, somewhat jarring way of describing this.
Oh, the vehicle quote.
Yeah, he essentially called the physical organism a temporary vehicle. We are just the biological transport systems that genes utilize to replicate themselves and move into the next generation.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this because if we follow this logic to its modern conclusion, it feels as though it falls apart.
Go.
If we are just temporary meat suits programmed by our genes to relentlessly reproduce, how does gene selection theory explain behaviors that actively defy that? In 2026, we are seeing massive numbers of people choosing not to have kids at all. If my DNA is just a selfish replicator, how is it possible for me to just opt out of reproducing?
That is a fantastic pushback, and it gets to the heart of what we call mismatch theory. You have to separate the ultimate biological goal from the proximate psychological mechanism.
Proximate mechanism.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal of the gene is replication. But the gene can't consciously force you to have a child. Instead, it gave you proximate mechanisms. The desire for intimacy, the feeling of romantic love, the drive to seek social status. For 99% of human history, engaging in those behaviors automatically led to reproduction.
Because there was no birth control.
Exactly. The genes gave us the emotions as a proxy. Today, in 2026, we have severed the link between the behavior and the outcome through modern technology and cultural shifts. We still feel the intense drive for connection and love, but we can actively choose to bypass the genetic outcome.
That is wild.
The selfish gene built the emotional software, but we're currently using it in an environment the gene never anticipated.
That makes so much sense. The emotion is real to us, even if its original evolutionary purpose was purely mechanical. And this explains the concept of kin selection perfectly.
Yes, kin selection is a huge piece of this.
Early researchers were completely baffled when they saw an animal risk its own life to distract a deadly predator away from a nest of its relatives. If individual survival is all that matters, that animal is failing.
But mathematically, the animal's genes are succeeding. You share roughly 50% of your genetic code with your siblings. Under gene selection theory, an individual performs an altruistic behavior because it directly benefits closely related individuals who carry identical copies of those same genes.
So it's basically gene math.
Yes, sacrificing yourself to save 3 of your siblings results in a net positive for your genes. The individual vehicle might be destroyed, but the genetic cargo survives.
And we are seeing a very clear modern manifestation of this deep genetic drive in the 2026 economic data.
The family support trends.
Exactly. News articles recently highlighted a massive rise in family-centered financial support systems among college students. Inflation has completely driven up tuition and housing costs, and we are seeing both traditional undergraduates and non-traditional learners increasingly relying on extended family networks.
Pooling resources.
Yeah, families are pooling and extending their limited resources to closely related kin to ensure they don't drop out. It is a direct modern parallel to that ancestral cooperative behavior.
The arena has shifted from avoiding predators on the savannah to affording housing in a university city. But the deep-seated drive to prioritize and protect the survival of closely related individuals remains mathematically identical.
So if kin selection ensures our family's genes survive, the ultimate bottleneck is actually getting those genes into the next generation in the first place.
Right. You still need reproduction.
You can't just protect your siblings. Someone actually has to reproduce. Which brings us to the most competitive, high-stakes arena of human behavior, which is mating.
Oh, yes. To understand the mechanics of this, we look at sexual strategies theory, which was formulated by David Buss and David Schmidt. This theory maps out the complex menu of mating strategies humans pursue.
What's the core driver there?
The core driver here is sexual selection, the evolutionary process favoring specific traits that provide a distinct advantage in attracting romantic partners. And this operates through 2 primary pathways: intrasexual competition and intersexual selection.
Let's break those down. Intrasexual competition is basically the tournament bracket, right?
That's a great way to picture it. Intersexual competition involves direct battles between members of the same sex to win mating access.
Like literal fights.
Sometimes, yes. The victors of these contests pass on the qualities that led to their victory, whether that's physical strength, aggressive dominance, or social status.
And the other one?
Intersexual selection, on the other hand, is the judges' panel. This occurs when individuals of one sex display a preferential desire for specific characteristics in potential mates. This preferential choosing is what drives the evolution of specialized aesthetic attributes, like a peacock's feathers and complex human courtship behaviors.
The sources gave a highly visual example for this. Visualize two massive stags clashing their antlers together on a windswept savanna thousands of years ago.
A classic image.
It is a desperate, violent bid for dominance. That is the intersexual competition. And standing nearby, a female is carefully observing the fight, evaluating which suitor possesses the superior genetic traits to sire her future offspring. That evaluation is the intersexual selection.
And those dynamics are heavily dictated by biological asymmetry. A landmark 1989 study by David Buss proved this by examining 37 distinct cultures across every continent.
37 cultures. That's huge.
Very comprehensive. They looked at capitalist societies, communist societies, different religions, and found remarkably consistent baseline mating strategies everywhere.
Because it's hardwired, not just cultural.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that human romance is deeply influenced by asymmetrical ancestral parental investments. Women historically invested vastly more biological resources in offspring, 9 months of gestation followed by years of nursing.
A huge physical toll.
Right. Because of that heavy physical toll, they evolved intersexual strategies, prioritizing partners who displayed resourcefulness and long-term commitment. Men, conversely, did not face the heavy biological cost of gestation, but they historically faced the problem of paternity uncertainty.
So different pressures lead to different strategies.
Yes. This led to strategies focusing on partner fidelity and fertility cues. As Buss noted, human courtship isn't random. It's an intricate dance governed by ancient evolutionary rules of attraction.
And we are seeing the ancient dance play out right now on our smartphones. Social scientists in 2026 are documenting a massive shift in how college students navigate digital dating apps.
It's really interesting data.
We are seeing data showing that whether we are talking about 19-year-old undergrads or older adult learners re-entering the dating pool, users are explicitly seeking partners with undeniable financial stability and clear career trajectories. They are prioritizing resource security over almost everything else.
It is a highly pragmatic, economic approach to modern dating. But beneath the surface, it directly reflects those ancient evolutionary desires for long-term parental investment and environmental security.
When I look at modern dating apps, with all the intense social competition and the highly curated self-presentation, it is basically just those ancient stags clashing antlers on the savannah all over again.
It really is.
It is the exact same battle for dominance and visibility. It's just been digitized.
Yeah.
We are flexing our remote tech jobs and our carefully filtered photos instead of our antlers.
The technological tools change rapidly, but the evolutionary scripts driving the user behavior remain universal.
So, with all these high-stakes survival and mating strategies running our background software, you would think our brains are these perfect, incredibly precise, calculating supercomputers.
You would think so.
But they aren't. In fact, our brains are hardwired to make specific, systematic, and sometimes hilarious mistakes.
This brings us to a fascinating concept called error management theory, or EMT. EMT explains how human cognition evolved to navigate uncertain situations by actively developing adaptive cognitive biases.
Adaptive biases.
Right. When you are forced to make a rapid decision under conditions of uncertainty, you can make one of two errors, a false positive or a false negative.
Walk us through the math of those errors.
Imagine you are walking through a dark, rustling forest at twilight. The visibility is terrible. Suddenly, there is a sharp movement in the grass near your foot.
Instant panic.
Yes. Your heart stops, your dual weapons activate, and you leap backward, assuming a deadly venomous snake is about to strike. But moments later, as your eyes adjust, you realize it was just a harmless stick blown by the wind.
So leaping back from a stick is a false positive. You perceived a mortal threat that wasn't actually there.
Exactly. Now think about the alternative error, a false negative. That would be looking at the movement in the grass, assuming it's just a stick, walking past it, and taking a fatal bite to the ankle because it actually was a deadly snake.
Okay, that's a much worse outcome.
Infinitely worse.
The cost of a false positive is just a moment of embarrassment and maybe a few wasted calories from jumping. The cost of a false negative is death. Because the costs of these errors are heavily asymmetrical, evolution strongly favors a cognitive bias toward making the least costly mistake over and over again.
Better safe than sorry, essentially.
The researcher Marty Hazelton states that our cognitive biases are not irrational errors. They are adaptive shields designed to keep us alive in an uncertain world.
So what does this all mean? It reminds me of a highly sensitive household smoke detector. It is incredibly annoying when that alarm goes off just because you burned a piece of toast in the kitchen.
It's the worst. Right. That burnt toast is a false positive. But the smoke detector is specifically engineered to be overly sensitive so that you never ever sleep through an actual house fire, which would be the fatal false negative. The annoyance of the false alarm is a built-in feature, not a bug.
That is the perfect analogy. And this deeply ingrained tendency to treat ambiguous threats with maximum caution is being heavily exploited right now.
How so?
Well, in 2026, university cybersecurity experts are issuing major warnings about sophisticated digital phishing scams targeting college campuses.
Oh, this goes right back to the urgent text messages we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
Yes, the mechanism is identical. Academic advisors are noting that students of all ages are frequently clicking on urgent, fraudulent digital warnings out of a defensive fear of institutional penalties.
Oh, like when a student receives a vague text message about a suspended account or an unpaid fee?
Exactly. The brain doesn't rationally analyze the digital footprint of the message. It treats it as an ambiguous threat to the student's social and academic standing. Error management theory kicks in. We are biased to overestimate the threat.
The cost of ignoring the text, a false negative, feels like academic death. You get expelled or fined.
Right.
The cost of clicking it, a false positive, feels low right up until they steal your password. It is the stick and the snake all over again, just playing out in an inbox.
We see this asymmetrical bias everywhere. EMP also identifies things like the auditory looming bias, where we consistently overestimate how close an approaching sound is to give ourselves extra time to avoid a collision.
Wow.
Or the sexual overperception bias, where men frequently overestimate a woman's sexual interest based on completely neutral cues, minimizing the reproductive cost of a missed opportunity. These systematic cognitive distortions are engineered into our hardware to maximize survival.
It is truly wild to step back and look at our daily mundane lives through this specific lens.
It really changes your perspective.
Whether you are swiping on a crowded digital dating app, trying to rewrite your study habits to survive alongside hyper-advanced AI, or just trying to avoid clicking a terrifying phishing scam on your phone, you are utilizing a Stone Age mind.
Running that ancient software.
Yes, your brain is perfectly equipped to navigate a brutal, ancient world, and it is doing its absolute best to apply those ancient rules to a 2026 reality.
It entirely reframes how we view our own behavior. We aren't failing to cope with modern life. Our biological systems are operating exactly as they were painstakingly designed to over millions of years. But observing how rapidly our modern environment is shifting, this raises an important question for us to consider.
Let's hear it.
If hyper-advanced artificial intelligence, massive technological shifts, and modern environmental stressors are the new volcanic eruptions and ice ages of our era, what brand new psychological adaptations are we currently developing right now that our descendants 10,000 years in the future will inherit?
Wow, that is something to chew on. What invisible software update are we silently downloading right now for the humans of the future? Well, as you go about your day, the next time your heart pounds before speaking in public or you panic at a vague text, just remember, you are not overreacting. You are the ultimate unbroken chain of millions of years of survivors, and your brain is just trying to keep you safe from the saber tooth. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.